By 1914, the North and South poles of the Earth had already been reached. For an explorer named Ernest Shackleton, there was only one great prize left: to walk across the entire Antarctic continent on foot. Looking at the map, his planned route was immense. It stretched roughly 1,800 miles. He intended to land his team on the edge of the Weddell Sea, march straight across the South Pole, and emerge on the other side at the Ross Sea. To get his 28-man crew to the starting line, Shackleton commissioned a state-of-the-art wooden ship named the Endurance. Its reinforced hull was specifically engineered to withstand the crushing pressure of polar ice. But the environment did not cooperate. Just a few months into the journey, the Weddell Sea froze solid around them. The Endurance became completely trapped in jagged ridges of pack ice, miles from their landing point. They were no longer an expedition. Stuck in the moving ice, the crew became prisoners of the ocean currents, drifting further and further off course with every passing week. The plan to cross the continent was officially dead. From this moment on, the original mission was scrapped, and the only metric of success was whether these 28 men would make it back home alive. Antarctic winter set in. That meant temperatures plunging to -50 degrees Celsius, months of 24-hour total darkness, and the constant deafening sound of millions of tons of shifting ice pressing against the ship. Eventually, the pressure became too much even for the Endurance. The ice pierced the thick timber hull, water rushed in, and Shackleton gave the order to abandon the vessel. The 28 men now stood on a drifting sheet of frozen ocean, watching the mangled remains of their only shelter and supply base slip beneath the ice. They had no ship, no radio to contact anyone, and zero chance of rescue. With their physical safety net entirely gone, Shackleton's psychological framing of the disaster was the only thing standing between his crew and immediate panic. Shackleton understood a harsh reality about extreme isolation. Long before the freezing temperatures killed his men, boredom and despair would fracture the group. To keep them focused, he enforced strict salvage rules. Every man was allowed a maximum of 2 pounds of personal gear. Shackleton himself dropped his own gold coins into the snow, establishing right then that survival, not wealth, was their currency. Yet he deliberately made exceptions for heavy, impractical items. He allowed the salvage of hundreds of heavy glass photographic plates and a crew member's banjo. He called these items vital mental medicine, knowing that music and purpose would protect their sanity during the long wait. That sanity was critical because of the group he had to manage. The crew included seasoned sailors, scientists, and even a stowaway who had snuck aboard in London, all now sharing equal footing in the exact same miserable conditions. As the months dragged on, the situation forced ruthless calculations. Shackleton began lying to his men about their dwindling food supplies to prevent panic. Eventually, he made the devastating decision to execute the expedition's sled dogs so the crew could eat the meat. In a drawn-out disaster, managing a team's psychology isn't a secondary concern. Keeping hope alive requires the exact same tactical precision as rationing physical calories. Nearly 500 days after they first became trapped, the ice floe beneath their camp began to break apart. They scrambled into 3 salvaged lifeboats and rowed to Elephant Island, stepping onto solid ground for the first time in over a year. But Elephant Island was far outside human shipping lanes. Staying meant they would slowly starve to death. Seeking help required navigating the Drake Passage, the most violent stretch of ocean on the planet. Shackleton decided to take 5 men and find a rescue ship himself. They would make the journey in the James Caird, a tiny 22-foot wooden lifeboat that they heavily modified just to keep the freezing water out. This shows the scale of what they were attempting. They aimed for a whaling station on South Georgia Island, an 800-mile target across open water. Missing the island by even a fraction of a degree meant sailing past it entirely and vanishing into the Atlantic. For 16 days, they fought hurricane-force winds and freezing spray. They had to constantly hack ice off the wooden deck to prevent the small boat from capsizing, all while navigating over rogue waves that towered up to 12 meters high. It was a voyage with terrible odds of survival. But when waiting passively guarantees death, embracing a highly calculated, near-impossible risk becomes the only rational option. Miraculously, the small boat reached South Georgia Island, but the brutal ocean currents forced them to land on the uninhabited side, and their boat was too battered to sail around the coast to the whaling station. The whaling station was on the opposite coast, separated by a mountain range no human had ever crossed. Shackleton and 2 of his men tied themselves together with rope and hiked for 36 hours straight over unmapped 10,000-foot glaciers without tents or proper gear. Finally, they descended the peaks and walked into the Stromness whaling station. The factory manager couldn't believe his eyes when 3 unrecognizable men, covered in dirt with matted beards, appeared out of the mountains nearly 2 years after going missing. The human body is capable of absorbing immense physical punishment. When driven by the absolute responsibility to save the lives of others, human endurance expands far beyond what we assume are our physical limits. Back on Elephant Island, Shackleton's deputy, Frank Wild, had kept the remaining 22 men motivated for over 4 months while living under overturned boats. Every single morning, Wild ordered the men to pack their gear, telling them the boss might come today. Then, on August 30th, 1916, a Chilean rescue ship broke through the fog. Shackleton had returned. He brought the remaining crew aboard, completing an agonizing ordeal where not a single one of the original 28 men was lost to the ice. Over a century later, in 2022, deep-sea explorers found the wreck of the Endurance sitting 10,000 feet beneath the Weddell Sea. Preserved perfectly by the freezing water, it remains a silent time capsule of their struggle. Ernest Shackleton's expedition failed to cross the Antarctic continent, but the legacy of the Endurance proves that success isn't always about perfectly executing your original plan. It's about how rapidly you adapt and how effectively you lead.